welcome to another balcony gardening vlog. It is actually quite beautiful today because it's been miserable for the past month. It's raining non-stop and some of my plants are starting to rot because the soil doesn't have a chance to dry out. So I'm a little bit concerned, especially for my spring bulbs. But today we are going to be planting some new plants on my balcony, and I wanted to share with you what I'm going to be planting as an idea, as an inspiration. So I have two beautiful climbers because I'm always trying to add more vertical interest to my balcony, because balcony is, or terrace is not only the floor that we have available, but also all of that vertical space. So it's always a good idea to use the balcony to its full potential by also using that vertical space. So all of these plants that I'm going to be showing you today, they can be grown both on a shady balcony and on a sunny balcony, so that's really awesome. So let me show you what climbers I have and what I want to do with them. So I've had this bench for a while now, and what I'm thinking of doing is I would love to put two containers, two beautiful large containers, one on each side of the bench, and I actually bought some containers. Let me show you. So I recently bought these two pots and I'm super happy with them because I wanted a pots like these for a while, but terracotta pots that look like this and that are of this size can be really expensive. So I was searching for some plastic alternatives. So the idea is I want these two pots to be on each side of the bench, and then I want to grow two climbers in these pots. And I want the climbers to go up the wall and to create sort of an arch and to join each other in the center, and both of these climbers will bloom at the same time, so I think that would be like a really beautiful floral arch. I think that will look really cute. Okay, so my first climber that I'm going to be planting today and that I want to grow here next to the bench is Clematis jackmanii. And now you guys, if you don't have a clematis on your balcony yet, I highly encourage you to add it to your wish list because they are just so beautiful. I think that no other climber can compete with clematises in terms of diversity and in terms of how adaptable they are. Because you can find a clematis that is as small as 90 centimeters tall or as large as 8 to 10 meters tall, and anything in between. So no matter how large or small your balcony garden is, you can find a clematis that will be size appropriate for your space. And then obviously they come in so many different colors, in so many different bloom sizes and shapes. You can find clematises with large flowers, small flowers, single blooms and double blooms, bell-shaped flowers. Some flowers are scented, some have no fragrance at all. And then obviously we have clematises that bloom in different times of the year. We have spring flowering clematises, summer, autumn, winter. Some have deciduous foliage, some have evergreen foliage. Some clematises are not even climbing at all. Some are like really compact and like bush or shrub shaped. So honestly, I think that anyone can find a clematis that they like. And they can be grown both in the shade and in the sun. So honestly, they are a really beautiful, diverse group of plants that is very adaptable, that grows really well in containers. So if you don't have a clematis on your balcony, I'd highly encourage you to consider getting one for yourself, because when they bloom, they put on such a beautiful flower show that is just a pure joy and pure pleasure to watch them bloom. I don't know why I haven't planted more clematises up until now. I have only one clematis on my balcony and I'm completely obsessed with them, and I want to grow more clematises now. I have a Clematis montana Maylene that is back there. It is a spring flowering clematis. It's a really large clematis, grows 8 to 10 meters tall. And this one, Clematis jackmanii, is way smaller. It grows anywhere from 2.5 to 4 meters tall. And Montana is a spring flowering clematis and Jackmanii is a summer flowering clematis. So the idea is that once Montana is done, Jackmanii picks up and we have that continuation of beautiful flower show. So it is a summer flowering clematis. It is a large flowered clematis, single blooms, purple flowers, a really beautiful clematis. So now let me show you the other climber that I have. So I have this grouping of pots in here with one obelisk and ivy climbing on top of it, and I would like to add one more obelisk, but a little bit larger, in here where I currently have this begonia. So I want to add one large obelisk and grow another climbing plant on top of it. So my second climber that I'm gonna be growing in this area is this one. And I know that it doesn't look like much. I was actually really disappointed when I received this plant because there was not a single healthy leaf on it, and upon a closer inspection I realized that it had red spider mites. So obviously I contacted the vendor, they gave me money back, but still I know that's a little bit disappointing when you are excited about a plant and then you receive it and it's like in really terrible condition. So I haven't done anything about the spider mites for now because I mean, spider mites can be really dangerous and they reproduce really fast, but to reproduce really fast, they need really warm and dry conditions. And it is very cold outside, it's really rainy, so it's really humid. So I think that just the weather conditions themselves will prevent them from reproducing and from spreading in the garden, but I will keep an eye on them and we'll see what happens in the spring. So here we have passion flower. Passiflora Ea Popea, and that's a really interesting cultivar because it is a hybrid between a really ornamental passion flower and a fruiting passion flower. So you get the best of both worlds because you have this beautiful ornamental plant, passion flower, that produces like those really large, beautiful, pinkish mauve flowers. But there's also the possibility for this plant to produce a really tasty, really yummy fruit. But in order to produce that fruit, you need another passion flower to cross-pollinate, which I don't have for now. But I'll keep that in mind because how cool would that be, right? To grow your own passion fruit on your balcony. So it can be grown in the shade, in part shade, or in full sun. I think that you could plant it in the shade if you were to grow it only as an ornamental plant, but obviously if you wanted a fruit production, you will need at least a couple of hours of sunlight for that fruit to ripen. I couldn't find a lot of information about this plant online, only the website where I bought it and the breeder's website. The breeder is from Switzerland, and they say that this plant is a really great performer, that it can produce many flowers. The flowers themselves won't last really long, they are quite ephemeral. But they ensure that even though the single flowers don't last very long, the plant can produce a lot of flowers. So you can still enjoy blooms all throughout summer, from June all the way until September. And then in September, in autumn, the plant normally would set fruit. So I'm really excited to grow this one, really excited to see what happens in the spring. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I will give you guys some updates later on. Okay, and the last plant that I want to show you today is this hydrangea, but this is not just any hydrangea. This one is pretty special and I'm super excited to grow it, as you can tell. And I think that many of you can be potentially interested in growing this plant as well. So this is Hydrangea arborescens. So the Hydrangea arborescens are the Annabelle type hydrangeas, and as you guys know, Annabelles, they are really large. And they are really floppy as well. You will always find them like laying flat on the floor, which doesn't look very attractive because they have those massive flower heads and very weak stems, so they're always flopped. Even the improved Annabelle, the Incredible, they are still, in my opinion, too large to be grown in containers. I mean, if you have a large balcony and a large container, then sure, you can plant them. But I think for most balcony gardens, they will be a little bit too large. So here comes the Bella Ragazza series. These are the smallest Annabelle type hydrangeas in the world. They only grow about 65 centimeters tall and wide. And in that Bella Ragazza series, we have 3 hydrangeas. We have Limetta, which is chartreusey green. We have Blanchetta, which is all white, which is the one that I picked. And then Mauvette. And what is so incredible about Hydrangea arborescens is that they are very adaptable. So they can be grown both in full sun and in full shade. They are actually always recommended for full shade gardens. And so are the big leaf hydrangeas, the Hydrangea macrophylla. But the problem with Hydrangea macrophylla that I'm just showing you right now is that they bloom on old wood. So they will produce their flower buds on the branches that they grew in the previous year. So if you prune it at the wrong time of the year, if you prune it in the fall or in the spring, you're cutting off potential blooms. So with Hydrangea arborescens, these bloom on new wood. So it means that if you prune it in the fall, if you prune it in the spring, in all cases in the spring, it's gonna produce new stems, and on the stems it's gonna produce its flowers. So they are really beginner friendly because even if you prune it at the wrong time of the year, it's most likely still gonna bloom for you. So I think that makes them really amazing plants because first of all, they are super dwarf, so perfect for balcony gardens, really beginner friendly because they bloom on new wood, and then they can be grown both in the sun and in the shade. So I'm really excited to grow this one. So now let's plant all of these plants. Okay, so let's start by planting Clematis, and one thing that I want to address really quickly is that obviously the size difference between these two containers is huge. Like this nursery pot is so small compared to this one, and you know, we always say that don't plant plants into larger container because then when you have a small plant with a very small root system and then you plant it in a huge pot, it will be surrounded by this wet potting mix and it can cause this plant to rot. But in case of Clematises, they grow so rapidly that I prefer planting them in their final container right from the start than to have to repot them every couple of months because they grow super fast. You will see in the spring this plant will fill this pot out in no time. So I just need to be careful in the fall because it's really rainy right now, so I'm gonna place it next to the wall where there's a rain shadow so that it doesn't receive excess moisture. But in the spring, once this plant starts to actively growing, it will be no issue at all. So I'm going to be planting it in a potting soil. Potting soil is a potting mix that contains actual garden soil. You can find them under different names. Sometimes it will be called loam-based compost or loam-based potting mix, potting soil, or something like John Innes number 3, because when it contains actual garden soil, it has better nutrient and water retention, and it prevents nutrients from leaching out. For example, multi-purpose potting mix is great too, but for trees and shrubs and climbers, it's better to plant them in a potting soil, so something that contains actual garden soil. And normally I would use a whole bunch of compost as of organic matter. I can never find the compost for sale at the garden centers. There's only one garden center that I know of that sells bagged compost, and they sell it only in summer. So always in summer I stock up, I buy like 4 or 5 bags, but I already used all of my compost, so I don't have any left and they don't sell anywhere anymore. So I'm gonna be using just potting soil, and then in the spring I'm gonna scrape the top layer of that potting soil and replace it with a nice layer of compost. Also, there is a drainage hole at the bottom, and I am not putting any extra layer of gravel. That's absolutely unnecessary when you have drainage holes at the bottom of the container. Now check this out. Whenever I plant something in a large container, I place the pot inside the pot, and then you just take it out, pop your plant out, and you have a perfect hole for planting. Earthworm, look at this. People always ask me, how come you have so many earthworms? I guess they come with plants, and then they stay on the balcony. They reproduce. I add a lot of organic matter, organic fertilizers, so they like it in here. But I think originally they come with plants. So just gonna tease the roots a little, like that, and pop it in the hole. There we go. So for now I'm gonna leave the bamboo stick in here. So just gonna leave it like this for now. In the spring I may buy some smaller containers of the same type to make a really cute grouping. So yeah, for now just gonna water it in a moment, but for now leave it like this. Okay, so the exact same process for the passiflora. Just gonna pop it out. Another worm, lovely. Just gonna up. There you go. This is not very pot bound, so it can go directly. So for now I put the plant in the corner there because it doesn't look very attractive, and the begonia here is still looking pretty, so for now it's gonna stay there. Okay, so now time for the hydrangea. I thought that I had a larger pot available, but turns out this is my largest pot available. So I'm gonna be repotting it temporarily into this pot because I still prefer to repot it now so that it doesn't overwinter in its plastic pot. But then in the spring I'm gonna plant it into a larger pot because it will need eventually slightly larger pot than this one. So with hydrangeas you can repot them either to soil-based potting mix, just like we did with the other climbers, or you can repot it into ericaceous potting mix. They do really well in slightly acidic soil. So I'm gonna be repotting mine into ericaceous potting mix. Right. Another earthworm, there's actually more of them. It's my lucky day, introducing more soil life to my balcony. Okay, you guys, so this is gonna be it for today's vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me for this balcony gardening day, and we'll see each other again next week. Bye!